Hi, it's Colleen Schmidt from Divination Counseling Service, here to present the full moon of December 4th, 2025. Just a little reiterating about the full moons and the new moons. When we look at a new moon, we can make predictions. But when we're looking at a full moon, we want to take the moment just to look at what is going on around us. So think of a full moon as being somewhat reflective. It's an opportunity to look at our lives and what is going on in our lives. So as always, as my new routine is, I am going to look at the Uranian chart first. So we're going to do some Uranian pictures before we get started on this. I am not going to dwell, we are using Washington, D.C. chart, but as always, I'm not probably going to dwell as heavily on the D.C. chart or even what's happening on the East Coast. Instead, let's really focus on everybody, what's going to affect the majority of us or all of us. And I generally tend to use the political scene as my mirror. And that's simply because when you're an astrologer following politics, particularly world events, is one way to get a handle on the zeitgeist. So I don't want us to focus on what's happening in the greater world because there's very little we can do about that. However, what I want us to do is to look at what I'm going to be showing you and how does it reflect in your own life. So instead of dwelling on the macro, let's see if we can focus on the micro. So first of all, I just want to talk about a few things. There is a picture here. There's a lot of really good pictures in here, okay? Or if it's not good, it's stuff that will make us feel good, like endings, and we'll get to that. But one of the things that comes up right away when I look at Uranian is that we have a Mars, Pluto minus Jupiter, okay? So Mars and Pluto. So right here is Mars, Pluto minus Jupiter. And this is from the Aries point, so it's everybody. Actually means plans carried through successfully. Plans that bring good fortune and happiness. So I want to start us off on a good note, and hopefully we get to end on a good note. So a couple of things. We're still in an aspect of Jupiter Adamitas to the Aries point, which really what it means is that fortune through being settled. I talked about that in the new moon. And you might be more aware of it now because now we're in a reflective period rather than a predictive period. The other thing that we can see here very strongly is that there's also work partnerships, or that's Mars and Juno down here, but also how they affect our home life, our family, and our community, which is Cupido. The other thing that we're seeing here is Kronos moon. Well, that's an independent woman, or it could be an official who is a female. So that also can be showing up there. And it all, in this particular case, is of course equaling Neptune. Now I want to talk about Neptune in a few ways, and I want us to look at Neptune as not just disillusion and disappointment. I think we've all had a lot of that. But I want us to look at it also as compassion and the empathy that we feel toward one another. The reason why I say that is because at 29 degrees of mutable, which means on a 90-degree dial, what is hitting Neptune? There's a lot of things, actually. Sappho for bonding, Panacea for a cure, and Hopi for territorial and prejudice. So one of the things that they're talking about here is that in order for us to solve the problem of prejudice, we need to bond together. We need to get to know these people. We need to become more aware of who the other is. And in some cases, the other will be completely a different nationality, a different age group. You know, it could be a lot of things where you might have bias or prejudices, and maybe you're not even aware of it. In my own case, it's neither of those things because I'm already old. And also, I don't have racial issues. Never, because I just wasn't raised that way. So my mentors have been of different colors and different nationalities and even different sexualities. So I don't have those issues. What I do have issues with is people who think differently than I do. So, ironically, one of the things that we've been talking about, I and my significant other, is that we need to invite back in the fold people who idealistically have been on different pages. So politically, okay? And I agreed. It's time. The bonding is the way to cure our problems. The powers that be might want to divide us. No, they really want to divide us. I'm just being diplomatic here. It is up to us not to allow that to happen. So just bear that in mind. So as we move the dial over to that Neptune, which is, again, that 29 degrees and some minutes, we get to look at the Aries point from a different angle. And here we see things that are changing in leaps and bounds. Things are going to go one direction, and they appear to go that direction over and over, and then whip, the worm turns. I actually heard that earlier today, and I thought, perfect. The worm is turning, okay? And what that means is that things will be one way, and then they will completely do a 180. I think we're seeing it, okay? I think we're seeing it. Whether it's the macro program or it's the micro program, I think we're beginning to see the turnarounds. I'm seeing people who were a little depressed and maybe a little bit upset, and they're not. They're beginning to smile more. By the same token, I, who could not walk, am walking. So the reality is that yes, we can see this in the macro. All we have to do is listen to the news, but you're going to see it in the micro as well, and that's where we want to really concentrate. Also here we have a Chronos to the sun, and that's dealing with authority figures. So that could be dealing with parents, dealing with bosses, dealing with leaders of any sort. I myself have been seeing a doctor a lot lately. So once again, we can look at this on a macro, but it's going to also be more effective on the micro. With the Jupiter and the Venus, there is again this sense of happy times or being more social. Now, I'm going to go back to the Ingress chart of last year, which is a minimal 9-month chart for predictions. And the interesting thing is we're getting ready for another one. But one of the things that was huge in that chart and some of the new moons after that chart was Henderson, which is an asteroid of antisocial behavior. Most of us were not social this past year. We were not as outgoing, or we weren't getting together with people or as social as we normally would be. Maybe you didn't go to the theater as much. Maybe you didn't go to concerts as much. Maybe because money was an issue, or maybe just not wanting to be around people could have been an issue. I didn't have a choice. I was antisocial for months. That's what happens when you can't leave your house. So the reality is that it's something that all of us have been experiencing on one level or another. And it's for this month, we're getting social, and maybe we all had some really good Thanksgivings. Even though we were really contemplating and worried about them, I'm willing to bet they all went really well. So that's another way to look at this. So Jupiter Venus is like going to the theater, having social engagements, being more social, and it's a good time. It really can be a good time. The other thing is when I move, because I like to look at the red, but we call it the red because it's within 3 seconds of orb. That means how tight it is. And in the red, we have Node plus Cupido minus Mars. Now remember, when I started, I talked about Mars and Cupido. All right? That's like working environments or working families or working in the home, or it's people that you're maybe even working around the house with. But when you mix that Cupido and Mars with the node, which is up here at the midheaven of the U.S. chart, so it also is going to relate to connections that the United States is being seen with. It can be anything where you're joining with others for common activities. So we go back to that again. And it's concerted activities of or efforts of a firm or a team. So, and again, we could look at that because it's going to be huge in the chart of the United States. So, that whole joining together for common activities. Now, it doesn't mean that we're joining with good people. It doesn't mean we're joining with bad people. It means we're just joining so it doesn't put a good or a bad on it. Astrology tends not to do that, okay? Because even though, and I'll show you something here, even though we're doing this Kronos Hades thing, and boy, we're all being affected by that, and I'll get into that later, that is not good, really. I mean, it's great for medical breakthroughs, but it's really bad decisions by people in authorities or leaders that are corrupt, if I have to get right to it. And so when you think, and particularly all things considered, that the Kronos Sun does equal an Aries point, it does mean that some of these decisions will be not only known, but they may be very disillusioned or disappointing. Okay, it could even be leaders that have compassion, but for the poor because of Hades. So it doesn't have to be one way or the other. It's not good or all bad. And even when they're bad and they're corrupt, and we're experiencing that right now, there's going to be good behind it. Not their decisions or them particularly, but people are waking up. They're going, wait a minute. And just that act in and of itself is very positive. So not everything is going to have, not every bad decision is going to have a lot of bad follow through. Sometimes we have to have that bad so that we can understand just how bad, okay? So that is something I really wanted to talk about. We have Saturn and Neptune separating right now, so we're not as disappointed. Good thing. So that actually turns out really well. Just briefly looking at the sun and the moon, you can see that with the nodes. Okay, now, the United States midheaven happens to be with the north node, but equaling the south node. Completing a perfect picture, meaning it hits 4 points. But the rest of the world is also dealing with it. Okay, so here's the sun and the moon. It's pulling up that midheaven, but it's really pulling up the nodes. And the nodes, nobody's escaping from. Okay, so if you don't live on the East Coast, your midheaven may not be there for this chart, but the nodes are. And so it just makes me think that all over the world, we're questioning some of our contacts, or questioning maybe how we're behaving with some of our contacts. We have an enlightenment period coming with regards to our goals, especially as they relate to the group or the family. We have a Venus Juno, which is great because now we went from talking about love partnerships to the intimate partnerships, or the social partnerships. Now, Mars is still there. It's still applicable. But it is more focused now on the Venus rather than the Mars. The Zeus is, it's definitely, I'm going to say, well, let's see, what is this? So Zeus is, I'm going to do a little bit of messing up here. Zeus is 25 Libra, and when I go back to the sun, where I'm looking is 27 Libra, so about 2 degrees away. And there's a little less than 2 degrees, but what I get here with Zeus is the seed. It can be the seed to a beginning that takes us a while. We sustain the energy, though. It's like we're excited through the whole thing, even working on it. So whatever the new beginning is, we're also very excited to be able to work on it. Zeus makes us more productive, but also Zeus is related to things that are explosive. Okay? Now, since the sun, since All right, where did I find? Oh, wait, over here. Here it is. Okay, there we go. Since the Sun and Kronos connect at the Aries point, okay, um, with that leaps and bounds and a couple of other things, the Venus, Jupiter, I tend to think this could also be really good decisions coming down through authority figures, or I've just had some really good medical appointments that were very good, like good news type things. So that's also really possible as well. Now, I did that. I'm going to do that later. I'm just going through this. I just for the heck of it, okay, because really the sun and the moon are by far the most important thing in this chart beside the Aries point because it does everybody. If I go to the chart, I'm going to say that, and I'm doing this on purpose because there's a lot of stuff in the news that deals with explosions that are going on. I don't want to get into it too deeply, but look at this. There's a lot of pressure to stop something. That's one of the things that's going to be dealt with. I would hope that and also remember the sun, and the sun is there. And so there's a lot. So in this particular case, not only have a midheaven node, we have a sun, we have Zeus, we have a Volcanus to Admetus, the pressure to stop, the pressure to and also the pressure that comes from when there isn't enough money or when resources are scant. So I also want to say that because Volcanus is pressure and Admetus is blockages, stoppages, but I also think there's something that will be stopping during this time. So I think that when you look at this on a micro level, think of all the ways these particular aspects, or pictures as they're called, could be affecting you. So here's another one, and I'm just doing these because these are what they call completed pictures, meaning that when I put my arrow here at the ascendant, it also pulls up a node Kronos minus Saturn. So we would have node to Kronos, okay, minus Saturn, and it would go back to this ascendant. All right, just to let you know how that works. I'll actually show you. This could mean to be under arrest. Okay, so be careful, guys. But it also means hindrances by the power of state or by those people who are in charge. In other words, they're not exactly making things easier for us. In some cases, there could be receiving of a notice or a loss of even a position. Now, endings are featured. I'm going to get to that, okay? Atropos, which is the asteroid of endings. And so is Admetus, by the way. But Atropos even more so, because I like to stay with the asteroids because their meanings are clear, concise, and simple. They don't have, like, I just went through a whole thing on Neptune, okay? They're not like that. And I want to say this. If there's losses of position, or if there is something where you're receiving a notice, I don't think it's going to be bad. I know that sounds really weird, right? I don't think it's going to be bad. I think it's going to be what you wanted. Because Atropos itself is not in a bad position. Okay? On with my notes. So, that's the ascendant. What did I see here? I thought, oh, by the way, this Atropos, I believe, is down here. I mean, let me look it up here. Atropos, let me look it up. Yeah, it's 20 degrees of Scorpio, so I'm off a little bit because that's down in, that's in Capricorn. So it's actually right in here. So it is right at this, around this dot. So it is involved with the ascendant. In a 90-degree dial, which we'll look at later, it's right across the dial. It also features the sun and moon. So we'll get to that in the 90-degree. But I can tell you, in other words, by dot. On here it would be by dot. It's really strong in the axis. So we will look at that later. Okay. I definitely want to go into that when we get to the 90 degree. Hopefully I won't forget. I'm going to make sure I get everything on here. Then we go to, the node is always important, okay? And in this particular chart, the node's important for everybody on here. And look that the node, again, makes that grand cross with the sun and the moon. Look at ascendant. It's with Mercury. So again, DC, our area, me, I'm going to be receiving news, okay? Or communications are really important right now. When I look around the dial for the dots, there really aren't any that, I mean, you got your Mars Adamitas. And again, this is like you're blocked, you're stopped. Your actions or your activities have been curtailed, okay? And it's coming through news. So it's something for us all to look at. In the case of the United States chart, the midheaven is there. And with that said, all that I just said is going to directly apply to this government and to this cabinet. So in a sense, that is a good thing. So as we look at the node and the midheaven, we would see that this is a time of being stimulated mentally, which is I definitely feel like is happening. And it's bringing the light. So what's happening is whether something's ending or beginning or whatever it's doing, in this case endings, then it's bringing light to something. It might even arouse some interest. So it's actually a very good thing. And also, it's the beginning, it's like a difficulty which is difficult but could become more difficult through other people. Okay, so in other words, something might be starting, it's with this person over here and maybe that person, and then before you know it, many people are going to be involved. I'm thinking if there's any others that would be pretty good to, yeah, you may be, it might be something that doesn't directly involve you, but you might be one of the people pulled in later. So, you know, we could be asked by other people. Just be careful. And I'm saying this for two reasons. And I'm going to get to that in a second. One is we have Veracity still in the Aries point. I know I talked about it last time, and it's like these things that we believe we need to have in our life in order to be happy, or it just needs to be this way, and then we realize, oh no, it really doesn't. And so this picture also means to deceive oneself in your thinking. Okay? It's about opinions and conversations. Being deceived by opinions, being deceived through the conversations. And again, I think it's not so much that we're being told lies, it's that people believe things that are not really there, or they believe that it has to be there and then realize, oh my goodness, no, it's not even there. It can be at times saying the wrong things. And it could be people, the sun, the moon, saying the wrong thing. So be careful. It's also about clearing up mistakes in thinking and opinion. So in other words, here we go again with bringing the light, bringing the truth. And it's funny because that is what's happening if you look around you. It's really happening just like that. So with that said, I'm going to move now to Solar Fire. I've now been working with Nova Chart Wheels. Oh, and I did say I was going to show you a picture. Okay, why don't we do this one? All right. So we see where this is all ended up. Okay, just get a good look at it, because now we're going to do the math here. So if I took Neptune and I add it to, and then I subtract, oh, and I just realized, what am I subtracting it from? I think it was Kronos, but we'll find out. Well, the ascendant's in there. Jupiter, in other words, Jupiter hates, there's a lot of pressure, probably due to money. But that's how you do a full picture. That wasn't the picture I was really going for. So let me go back. Let me go back here a moment. The picture, and now that wasn't what I was looking at, was it? Let me see if I can find one here, just so that you could see what this looks like. Yeah, here's a picture, and I don't have to move the dial, okay? Because the moon and the sun equal the south and the north node. Okay? So, we do this. So we could take the ascendant plus the midheaven, okay? And we see there's a Zeus Mercury on that, so there's a little bit of news that could come that will be exciting. But remember that in astrology we don't do good or bad, so it could be good news, that's exciting, it could be bad news. I'm going to take off that Apollon, and then here you get the South Node running, which means there's a lot of oppression with our work. So some of the stuff we're getting or hearing may not be all that great. But that's how we do this. And actually what this means overall, that picture, except for we do have that it's professional success. That's what it means. That picture I just did for you, okay, is about professional success. So I did ascendant plus midheaven minus Apollon. It talks about success. And it is success. However, it's also talking about how once successful, it can be really oppressive because you'll be working all the time. So that fits. So with that said, I'm going to take a moment and I'll be right back. Always takes me a few minutes to do that. I'm going to go to the wheel first. You can tell I've been working. I'm still working on that dial. But let's look first of all at the house cusp, because you know I really like doing that. And I'm going to say to us that I'm going to stay within a degree as always. This one, unlike the new moon, this actually does have quite a few. So let's look at them. We start with how chaotic things are within our environment. Now, it is the holidays. It talks about well-being and cleaning up. Okay, so I bet you 10 to 1 there are so many people out there who are entertaining and thus cleaning up, either before people get there or after, but most likely both. So the whole idea of cleaning up and how chaotic, it's like chaotic mess is what I get from that. So that's the environment itself, okay? As I move on, I'm not going to conclude Jupiter sitting on the second house cusp as it's moving backwards. So it's already out by 15 minutes, but it's not even worth looking at because it's moving away from that cusp rather than to it. I'm going to skip this one on the 3rd because it also, this is actually closer, this well-being and this health asteroid is actually a lot closer. This is also, for people like me, I have so many appointments between all the work that's being done in my mouth and then, you know, follow-up doctor appointments because of having broken my ankle and now I'm getting a Dexagram and all that other stuff. It's just like making mincemeat of my calendar. Talk about chaos. So some of us could be experiencing something of that nature. When I get down here to the IC, we have a south node coming from the 3rd coming to it. So that is in aspect. And it does mean that, and this is, again, it's the holidays. I don't even care where you live that this is going to be true. That, you know, around the holidays it gets a little oppressive. We all have 1,000 things to do. And, you know, there isn't enough time. And the fact that the south node is falling right at the IC is also an indication that it's more related to our personal lives and our families. And families can be such a burden. That's just life. And that is sometimes true no matter who the family is, okay? And part of it is another health issue asteroid there at Westphalia. So one of the things could be that, you know, people might be low energy, they may not feel good, and that too could be a little oppressive. So look, that's all personal life and it's all related to our personal being. On the cusp, yeah, I'm not going to use that one. It's too far out. Let's keep moving. Oh, okay. Here is, okay, so as we're getting into the 5th to the 6th, I think I have this listed as Abundantia, but I'm going to double check because I believe that it's more than that. Yeah, I was right. I'm glad I looked it up. It's Melpomene, okay? And what Melpomene stands for is sometimes just things getting worse. And it's almost as though you're not really able to express yourself because of the amount of responsibility and work. and even maybe health issues again that are plaguing you at 2859 Scorpio. And this is at 2846 Scorpio. So it's really encompassing the energies both of I'm not really able to express myself all the way to it's the day-to-day reality of all of my responsibility and everything I have to get done. Or it could be related to my health and my health regime and my health routine. Then I'm going to move over here where we have the power spirit right on that descendant, okay? And this can be part of spirit, some people call it part of fortune, but it comes through other people. And one of the things I would say to you is if you are feeling pretty lousy, it might be a good time to bond with somebody who's a good friend that can make you feel better. And that will be helpful. I also want to point out that Hestia, which is similar to Vesta, which is our work, our goals, and work in general, our day-to-day, especially as it falls in the sixth, could also be related to other people. So here we go with people that we might work with, or it might be a goal related to a partner. That would be like getting all the Christmas gifts. So, there's the things that we might be looking for right now. And again, this is more the DC chart, East Coast people, but I always like to go through this because it's a whole other way to read the chart. At 2530 of Capricorn is our next one. And at 2435, barely in there, we have Amor. Now, Amor is great because Amor is love. Okay, it is what it is. However, love needs boundaries and conditions. It's like saying, I love you, but I really wish you didn't do that. Or, I love you, but it's hard to tolerate your behavior. Or, so it's like putting conditions in love. It's like saying, you have to have more, you have to be more in the bounds, so to speak, to the person, whoever it is. So it's like love with conditions, I guess is a good way to put it. I mean, you still love them, but there's got to be conditions on that. And that's where Amor comes in. And again, it's the 7th to the 8th house. So it's, as you're moving, from the partnership into shared resources, if somebody's spending a lot of money, you might have to say, oh, I love you dearly, but you gotta stop spending. That would be an absolute. I love this next one. Okay, so this next one is from the 8th house as it moves into the 9th house. And it has people questioning things. What they might be questioning is, here we go, that money thing again. Are you spending too much money? Are you questioning how much? But there's questions. Could be questions about resources. We're getting ready to do taxes. So there's a lot of things we might be questioning with regards to our resources, particularly shared resources. At 1336, we have the North Node coming from the 9th house into the 10th. And this could be changes that are taking place that could affect you directly in your career, your work. We already went through some pictures that call that into play. North Node also is about making connections, soul connections, because it's the midheaven. So soul unions. And that could be relatives, but it could also be just people that you're very close to, or that if you're just meeting them, that you'll get close to immediately. Then I move on because we don't have anything until we get to the 12th house. And here at 2853 versus 2859, only 6 minutes in the house of associates, the 11th house, friends, associates, people we associate with, groups and organizations we associate with. Uranus is moving into the 12th. And there's something here that's pretty interesting because it's like kind of a restlessness, particularly as it hits the 12th house, because think of the 12th house as more like an isolation thing. But it's almost like when people are left to their own, and this is also going to be visible in the chart, I'm going to be showing that in a minute with Persephone, which is, the journeys we can only take by ourselves. There is a little bit of, we're changing. all of us. I mean, we should be. This is the time of the ascension, or the great reveal, as it's called, the great reset, other people call it. It's a very important time. People will look back on this point in history 1,000 years from now. So this is an important time. And in that time, we will have opportunity to really change. And the thing about Uranus is little changes that lead to 100 more little changes. Big changes that lead to 1,000 little changes. So it's almost as though with Uranus, it's such an unpredictable planet, but one thing that's guaranteed through Uranus is change. And that change is us and our spirituality. And that's how I like to present it because of the 12th house. It doesn't mean you're going to change religions or anything like that. And I'm not a religious person. I'm much more spiritual, but I'm not into dogma. So on a spiritual level, there's going to be some changes in all of us. And that's, I think, another good thing. Particularly since the moon, and you can see the moon, is also in that 12th house. We're not being outward and open with our emotions, particularly not here on the East Coast, okay? So as I say, I don't like to spend a lot of time on that because that's the only little reading I do that's really pertaining only to this DC chart. And by the way, I don't think I've said this. It's December 4th at 2025, 6:13:47 p.m. Okay? So, now I'm going to move us to the dial for the very last part of what I'm going to do. I want to get a little bit better at this. Let's start here. Okay, just for a second. I looked at Kronos because, and it's playing out here with, this is Psyche right there. It is also an equatorial ascendant. Okay, so that's a different kind of an ascendant for this particular chart. And it's a Psyche that equals, in other words, we are transforming. We are healing our emotional wounds with this, with Pluto equaling that. And some of it is the result of authority figures, leaders, boss. It's very complicated with them. But because of decisions they are making and things they are doing, we are able to, it's a journey that we can only take on our own. Okay, I really think that's important to state at this particular point in time. You know, I love astrology because it kind of reaffirms, it keeps going over. Apparently, Kronos, Admetus, Uranus is a change in either leadership, governments, but it represents the changes. So everything that I've been talking about with losses of positions, with endings, with things that we're beginning to really see around us, that's what this is a confirmation that this Kronos equals Admetus Uranus. Okay, so it's, again, I love that astrology confirms itself over and over again. So let's go back here to the Aries point. There you have that Kronos sun we talked about. And Apollon, Mercury, a lot of news, a lot of correspondence moves. Ascendant Saturn is that separation, people separating or separations. The Kronos node tells us that we're going to have, all of us, some kind of contact with authorities, but that could be our parents too. I mean, it is that time of year. So there's a lot, because Kronos is anything that's considered an authority. Just be careful you don't get a ticket. That would be my suggestion. So I'm going to be looking at first the Aries point, and then I'm going to move to the sun-moon axis, okay? So here, I want to go by the minute, and we're going to go to 22:30. There we are. So, and you can see similar patterning in the, as we've already talked about all of this, with the 360 dial. The 90-degree dial just kind of magnifies things just a little bit more. So I'm going to talk about this axis, this up, down, and this across, okay? And I'm going to start with Paracelsus, which we've already spoken about. That asteroid that you think it has to be this way, just has to be like this. or I can't be happy. No, it don't. And then you find it doesn't. Chiron is also in the mix now. So Chiron is over here. It's this green thing. And Chiron is about alternatives. Okay, it's alternative medicine. It's the wounded healer. It's healing with tears. I always say there's always tears when it comes to Chiron and healing. And it's healing. And one of the things I believe is beginning to happen is that we are healing. The worm is turning. And healing is the result. There's also, this is really interesting because McGregor is the con man, right? But it does refer to the victory of the con man. Okay? So we're healing from a con man victory. I don't know what that is. Now that can be anything. We have it here politically, but let's take this to the micro, okay? Because it means everything it can. That could be a bad boss. It could be a corrupt authority figure you've had to deal with. It could be issues related to parenting. So, a parent, or somebody feels they got conned in some way. But there is victory and the con man, okay? And that is what we might be healing from, all of us. I'm going to talk about Sappho in a different way. I wrote about this in my article. Sappho is at 29 degrees of mutable. Neptune is at 29 degrees of mutable. Panacea is at 29 degrees of mutable. And Hopi is at 29 degrees of mutable. Now they're indifferent. So they're all up here hanging out here with Neptune, okay? And here we have them. I can even show you the glyphs because fortunately for all of us, they actually have the glyphs on the dial. I don't have to just take it from my notes. And that is, and as I wrote it out, bonding is a cure for prejudice. What does that mean? I think we already talked about it. I did talk about it when I talked about Neptune, and I said that one of the best ways to get over our biases and our prejudices would be to bond with those people, to have a conversation. It will heal us in the big picture. So I did talk about that. I know I wrote about it, but I did talk about it. Okay, Sheldon is telling us to be careful of our body images and our body language. So, if you're upset about something, your body might give you away. So just be aware of that. But also it is the holidays and they have begun. And eating too much is huge. So body awareness is really important right now. We also have here, I'm going to make sure I got them. Yeah, because Eurydice is 4 minutes out. Eurydice is like dependency on other people. That may or may not be true for you. But Hera is our partner. So it could be dependency on our partners that has to stop. And it could be related to a health reasons. In other words, something has to stop and it could be related to a certain food. Hera is a partner. So it could be maybe our partner's health or somebody else's health that we have to think about when it comes to Eurydice and dependencies. Maybe people who are dependent on us to help feed them. So, and it may even be just that we may be, we're stopping something. So I'm thinking that it could go either way. It could be, maybe you have to stop. Maybe you've been giving a lot of food away, but you, for right now, temporarily can't do it. So there's a couple of different things that could represent. Panacea, as I said, is in the Aries point. Okay, solving things, curing things. Okay, it's Panacea. We also have the love of kitty, or how excited little animals, and it's kitties in particular, and I know in my case, my heart will, I'm all animals really, but 4 kitties live in this house. 3 kitties actually live in this house, and a pupper. So yeah, some of us, it's that. Again, Valentine is you think about things that really excite you, and it just so happens it's running with Kitty. The next one is, okay, so we have Cortusa, Libitina, and Grieve. Well, Cortusa is seen as an ascendant, okay? And so you think of an ascendant as your environment. Well, I see tears in the environment with Libitina and grief. Okay, so again, with Sappho there, you want to bond. You want to, Panacea is coming, but maybe Panacea is just somebody who listens. Bonding. Sappho. Okay. Money, Rosetta, and Jacobson. Okay. Rosetta is another truth. Okay. So Rosetta is about the truth. So we're looking at the truth about money, and Jacobson is not good. Okay. I'm going to tell you exactly what that is. I'm going to do another. Well, it was what I thought. It's a con man again. I thought it was. So one of the things here is that there could be some, when you find out the truth about money, could be another reason why we grieve and cry, okay? And the truth. So the truth about money is coming about a con man, okay? It's coming. And my feeling is it's already coming out. Like, in other words, I know that on the macro, we've had some cabinet members abuse financially their positions already. It's only been 9-10 months. And so sad. And we're already in that. But look for it again on a more micro level, you know, where you have to be very careful of scammers and con men. And right now, particularly with the holidays. That brings us, we only have two more. We have Pallas. Well, Pallas is interesting because it's a political, okay? And how political is Hopi, prejudiced? Well, around here in the macro, that's pretty easy to see. But think about it in your own life, okay? That Pallas is about people who tell you what you think you want to hear. Remember Brassices, you think you want to hear that. And Hopi is prejudice, boundaries, and territories, okay? And the reality of what particularly this country is going through with these immigration detentions, okay, is just, wow. But it's a political thing. So it's like political prejudice. Oh, and we have that because every day we hear how awful we are as Democrats, which I always think is hilarious. But you know, think about it again in a micro level. Think about how the idea of Pallas, somebody who's, you know, strategically manipulating you, and about prejudices. Maybe they're even using your own biases and your own prejudices to manipulate you. Be aware of it. Remember, the con man shows up twice, and that's just the Aries point. Okay. So I'm going to move on. I grab my other. We're going to take the sun-moon axis, okay? So now it's a dial. They're going to show up together because it's a dial. And I want to make sure I got this right. So I'm looking at, I should have written it down. I'm going to go back to the wheel for just a moment. That's right, it's 03. I have it at 02. I knew something wasn't quite right. One more. There we are. And I know it doesn't really matter. It's only a minute, but I'm weird. It matters. Okay, so here's our first axis. Our first axis is 2803 cardinal, which you see right here. And you see here is Pythia. We'll get to that. And Pythia, by the way, means that you could be really intuitive about something, but it probably won't end up the way that you thought. It's Pythia. Oh yeah, you can be really intuitive and you really think it's going to go this particular, and that, you know, if it's like that, it's going to go this way, and then it doesn't. Remember the turning worm and all of that we talked about earlier. And then this is where the sun and moon are, which is actually at 13 degrees, 3 minutes of mutable. Okay, so from here, across dial would, now I take 2230 with that. And if I did 2230, it brings me to 5 degrees, 27, in other words, it would be 2230 back up, would be 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I have 527, so let's subtract. There you go, there's your ascendant. You see how that works? Now my ascendant popped up for the United States chart, but look what that ascendant is equaling on a 90 degree. Okay? Atropos, right, melpomene. So there could be, that things are, I'm sorry, that's not melpomene, that's, that is, I'll tell you in a minute, here we go. It's wondering, like, pondering something, wondering something. So we have Malit. It's like we're really wondering about those endings. We're also wondering about what we don't know. And that's that questioning, that sphinx that I already spoke about. So now I'm going to move on. And we're going to the next list. So we have, that's our axis. So our axis goes from here to here, and then from here to here. So it's not as clear as the Aries point, but just so that you know, again, I'll say it. It's 527 cardinal. It's 2803 cardinal. It's 1303 mutable. It's 1027 fixed. Okay? So just so you get it, because over here is cardinal, here is fixed, here's mutable. Okay? And there's always 4 points. It's always going to cross. So here we do see that Jupiter Ecuadorian ascendant, which is, definitely, again, it's not bad. We don't feel bad. People do not feel badly. So even if you don't like what's going on, you don't feel bad, you feel hopeful. So because we can see endings, whether it's at your work, your job, maybe it's because it's the end of the year, but endings, and it does make us feel better. So here, the first set that I'm going to do is, I love this, with the moon, people, okay? With the moon, chase and doo-doo. We're chasing crap. I mean, that's really what that is, literally. I don't even know what else to say about that. Maybe because of the ascendant equaling endings, we're ending chasing crap. We're stopping chasing crap. But they all run with the moon, emotionally. So think about emotionally. We also have here chaos, which I already spoke about. Chaos is running up here with the ascendant. It's chaotic. So again, this may not be the chart, like you might not live in DC, you might live in California, you might live in another country, but the reality is that you're still going to have that cross in the axis of the sun and the moon, which is to say that chaos is reigning right now. It's reigning chaos. I like the Blarney and Pythia. They're running together. The Blarney and the Pythia. See, they're down at this 28 mark here. See Pythia? Now, I already talked about Pythia, right? I talked about how, you could be really intuitive about something. But I'm going to tell you a little secret. Blarney is lies. And it's like you can really know what's going on, or you could think you know what's going on. But if you're not given all of the information, or if you're lied to, that is going to make things work out differently than you expected. Be aware of that. Demeter is in here, and Demeter is, we go back to food. Okay, so I knew food was big in here, and it comes up through Demeter. Demeter is at this point here. So Demeter's in here, right in here, close to endings. Could also be a good time to try to cut back on your eating or to stop something that maybe isn't good for you. Like maybe this would be a really good time to stop it. The south node, as we already know, is in that axis. We've seen it, is running with truth. The truth is going to be, in some cases, rather oppressive or shocking or oppressive. The truth, which is finally coming, and we're all here for it. I'm here for it. But it isn't always going to be easy. And I think that's a good way of looking at it. That brings us to Proserpina, which I showed you is over here. It really marks out doing things on your own and being, I'm sorry, it's not. It's up here with the ascendant. I don't know why I keep getting the wrong one. This is the one. This one is in aspect with something else we talked about earlier. So one is Proserpina, which is up here. And that's the one I'm talking about now. Whereas this is Persephone. Okay, so we're doing Proserpina. They both mean the same thing. They're both journeys that you can only take on your own. You got to do some things by yourself, even in your own environment. After that, we have Orpheus. Well, we already saw grief. Orpheus is sadness. One of the ways we can alleviate that is music and poetry. Otherwise, it's sadness and tears. So look for that. Of course, it is the holiday season and music is pretty big right now. Mezzani, Sun, and Lima are my next lineup. Okay? So that means that Mezzani, which is your memories of the day, Sun, and then the idea of kindness, memories of kindness in the day. Maybe a particular person who is very, very kind. That could be. So then it brings me to the Walker, Hestia, a lot of walking at work. That's what I would see this at. Walker, Hestia, Ascapulus, Hermes, and Axion. Okay, so let's go through each one of these because they all run together. They're all at 4 and 5 degrees of Capricorn. Okay, so they're up, hanging up at that ascendant. That ascendant's got a lot. That's one of the things that I was thinking about when I was doing this work, and I was thinking, I don't want to dwell on the Washington chart. Well, you sure as heck don't have to. All this stuff is showing up in the world stuff. So Walker is walking, a walker, a pedestrian. Hestia is, of course, work and goals. You might have a goal to walk more. That would be really good because it's good for your Ascapulus health. It could be a health factor. I'm just happy to be walking again, personally. Okay? But Hermes is, again, like Mercury, which was really big when I was showing you some of the other stuff earlier. It's messages. It's news coming in. And it's news of people who are rule breakers. Okay? It's kind of like escaping, rule breaking, axion. Okay? So it could be, that walking is a way to escape. I'm there. Or it could be, and Hermes is the Mercury, like walking in my neighborhood, for example. Okay? So I'll be walking in my neighborhood as a goal, even though it's winter. Well, it feels like winter. I know it's not quite winter, but snow is everywhere, and that could be. So, thinking about it that way. We come down here to Savo, Poseidon. Now that's Poseidon the asteroid. It does get red, very similar to that. It's like propaganda, but it could also be enlightenment. Both sides of the coin. And it could be that there's information that's been saved, but it could also relate and photography, pictures. So there could be lying, propaganda, but it's being saved. In other words, it might be looked at later. It could be lying and photography about something that could have been saved or should have been saved. Actually, we are discussing that here in this country with regards to the bombing of the Venezuelan fishing boats. And I want to say it that way because I believe that those boats are just too small to be running drugs to this country. I don't know where they're getting gas out there in the ocean. So then it brings us to wiles, which is down right in here again, and where we're meliting, where we're really thinking about things. And think about how wiles is literally people that have been taking advantage. Okay, they're wily. They are, they take advantage. And then we have at 13, so that would be over here again, near the sun and everything that's going on over there. We have really something that I think just represents things like haircuts. I believe that's what that one is. I checked it, but I have to go through all my notes. I'm pretty sure that's what it is. And that concludes our list for the day. And I hope that this was informative, and I hope it has, if no other effect, I hope it has the effect of getting you to look at what is going on in your life and where can you see the stars or the asteroids at work. Thank you for watching this video. Love to hear from you. You can comment. I would say like, that would be great. I don't know how much it will help with no SEO, but that's okay. At least I know that you saw it and liked it. That would be good. Until we meet again, I wish you all only happy readings. Till we meet again.